Hey, happy Tuesday. I hope your spring break went well and Easter was everything that you wanted it to be. We're going to work on the quadratic formula today, and this should be review. So we're going to start with the formula itself, which is x equals negative b plus and minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, and all of this is over 2a. There are a whole bunch of songs on YouTube if you want to hear it sung, the quadratic formula song. You're not going to hear it from me because when I sing, people cry. So in case you're wondering where these a's, b's, and c's are coming from, the quadratic equation in standard form looks like this: ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. And that can be set equal to 0. It can be set equal to y. Example 1, it's set equal to y. Example 2, it's set equal to f of x. And then the rest of the time, it's set equal to 0. All of those things mean exactly the same thing. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is figure out what our a, b, and c are. And that's the coefficients of the x squared term, the x term, and the term on the end. So if we look down here at example 1, a is going to be 1, b is going to be 10, and c is going to be 25. Okay, so now we can set up the equation. So we're looking at x equals the opposite of b, so negative 10, plus and minus the square root of b squared. Now don't do negative 10 squared, because if you do, you're going to get negative 100. Just figure out what 10 squared is, which is 100, and put it in. And then we've got minus 4 times a, which is 1, and c, which is 25. And all of that is over 2 times a, which is 1. So 2. Okay, so we want to simplify. Inside here, this underneath the radical, the radicand, is called the discriminant. So we're going to start by simplifying the discriminant. So we've got 100 minus 4 times 1 times 25. So 4 times 25 is 100. So we're looking at 100 minus 100. Okay, so x equals negative 10 plus and minus the square root of 0 over 2. Okay, the square root of 0 is 0. So we're really looking at negative 10 over 2, which is only one answer. The plus and minus doesn't even come into play. So negative 10 over 2 is negative 5. So we have one answer. That's negative 5. And we are finished. Okay, let's try that again. Let's try example 2. Same thing. A is equal to 1, b is equal to 3, and c is equal to negative 10. So we'll substitute these in. We'll get x is equal to the opposite of b, which is negative 3, plus and minus the square root of b squared, 3 squared, which is 9, minus 4 times a, which is 1, and c, which is negative 10. And all of that is over 2 times 1, which is 2. Okay, so let's start by simplifying the discriminant. We've got 9 minus 4 times 1 times negative 10. Okay, so we're looking at negative 40. So 9 minus negative 40. That's going to give us 9 plus 40, which is 49. So we get x is equal to negative 3 plus and minus the square root of 49 over 2. Okay, square root of 49 is 7. So we have negative 3 plus and minus 7 over 2. Okay, so we need to simplify this. So we have negative 3 plus 7. That's going to be 4. Divided by 2 is 2. And then we have negative 3 minus 7, which is negative 10. And negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. And we have finished another one. Okay, let's take a look at example 3. A is equal to 1, b is equal to 3, and c is equal to negative 2. So x equals the opposite of b, so we're looking at negative 3 again, plus and minus the square root of b squared, which is 9, minus 4 times a, which is 1, and c, which is negative 2, all over 2 times 1, which is 2. Okay, so let's look at the discriminant. So we've got 9 minus 4 times negative 2, which is negative 8. So 9 minus a minus 8. Okay, 9 minus a minus 8. That's 9 plus 8. So we have x equals negative 3 plus and minus the square root of 17 over 2. And that's going to be it, because we can't do any more simplifying than that. So it's almost easier when they have complicated answers. Okay, let's take a look at example 4. So a is equal to 1, b is equal to 5, and c is equal to 25. Okay, so x equals the opposite of b plus and minus the square root of b squared, which is 25, minus 4 times a, which is 1, and c, which is 25. And all of that is over 2. Okay, so we have 4 times 1 times 25, that's 100. So we have 25 minus 100. So x equals negative 5 plus or minus square root of negative 75 over 2. Okay, you know what negatives under the radical mean. That means we're talking about imaginary numbers. So let's take this 75 and rewrite it as the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 25 times the square root of 3. So this becomes an I, this becomes a 5, and we'll leave the radical 3 alone. So we end up with x equals negative 5 plus and minus 5i radical 3 all over 2. And it looks like some of that should simplify, but unless we can take out a 2 from each one of these terms, which we can't divide these by 2. So we're going to have to leave it the way that it is. Okay, in the home stretch. And then we come to number 5. Okay, none of us like those fractions, so let's get rid of them. Okay, we are looking at y equals, but we could also say that it equals 0. So let's just get rid of this right now, because we want to get rid of those fractions, and that means multiplying every single one of those by the least common denominator. So 2 times 5 is going to be the least common denominator, so we're going to multiply everything by 10. So x squared by 10, 3x by 10, and 3 by 10, and 0 by 10. Okay, so if we multiply the first term, our 2 cancels and we're left with 5, which gives us 5x squared. And then our 5 cancels and leaves us with 2. So we get plus 2 times 3 is 6x. And then finally, our 2 cancels, leaving us with 5. And so we have minus 5 times 3, which is 15. 10 times 0 is still 0, so we're good. Okay, so a equals 5, b equals 6, and c equals negative 15. We'll set it up, and we've got x equals the opposite of b, which is negative 6, plus and minus the square root of b squared, which is 36, minus 4 times a, which is 5, and c, which is negative 15. And all of that is over 2 times 5, which is 10. So we finally have one that's not a 1, or not a 2. Okay, so we've got 36 minus 4 times 5 is 20, times negative 15, is 300. So we're looking at 36 minus a negative 300. So 36 minus minus is going to be plus. So 36 plus 300 is going to be 336. So we get x is equal to negative 6 plus and minus the square root of 336 all over 10. Okay, we need to simplify that 336. So it turns out that 336 is divisible by 4 and by 16. So we can rewrite that 336 as radical 16 times radical 21. And I tried 4 first, and since 4 worked, I went ahead and tried 16, and that worked also, and it gave me something that I can't break down. So we're looking at 4 radical 21. So we get x is equal to negative 6 plus and minus 4 radical 21 over 10. Okay, this one we're going to be able to simplify. So if we divide each one of these by 2, which we can because they're all even, we're going to get x equals negative 3 plus and minus 2 radical 21 all over 5. Phew. Okay, that one will separate the men from the boys. Okay, last one. Okay, this one's not set up right. This one's in factored form, except it's set equal to 5. So what we want to do is go ahead and multiply it out, and then move the 5 over so it's all set equal to 0, like it is up here in standard form. Okay, so we've got x times x is x squared. X times 5 is 5x. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. And we're going to subtract 5, leaving us with 0 on that side. So we have x squared. 5 and negative 3 is going to be positive 2x. Negative 15 and negative 5 is negative 20. And that equals 0. This is a prime example of something that we would want to use the quadratic formula on because there are no factors of negative 20 that add up to positive 2. Okay, so a is equal to 1, b is equal to 2, c is equal to negative 20. So x is equal to the opposite of b, which is negative 2, plus and minus the square root of 2 squared, which is 4, minus 4 times a, which is 1, and c, which is negative 20. And all of that is over 2 times 1, which is 2. Okay, so let's work on the discriminant, this part underneath the radical. We have 4 minus 4 times negative 20 is negative 80. Okay, so 4 minus a minus 80 is going to give us x equals negative 2 plus and minus square root of 84 all over 2. Okay, so if we divide that by 4, we're going to get 21. 4 times 21, and 21 doesn't break down, so we're going to say 84 is radical 4 times radical 21. That radical 4 becomes a 2, and so we have x equals negative 2 plus and minus 2 radical 21 all over 2. And it looks there like we have a lot of 2's that we can cancel. So x is equal to, divide that by 2 and we get negative 1. Divide that by 2 and we get 1. So plus and minus radical 21. Divide that by 2 and we get 1, so we don't even need it. So we are completely finished. And you are ready to work on your homework, which in this case is going to be the worksheet. Now, if you get to working on the worksheet and it's not making sense, then by all means pull out the video again and watch it again. My suggestion would be that you watch it a couple times before you even try the worksheet that you're going to work on. All right? Okay, good luck.